I just want to say how much I appreciated today and how much I enjoyed going up and speaking in Belfast. I think it was a great event. And there's been a bit of controversy, and I knew there would be, because I spoke out against two ideologies which I believe are doing massive damage to Western civilization. The first one's Islamism, and we know what that's about. It's basically fanatical extremists who believe that there should be a caliphate run under Sharia law and that it should cover the whole globe. So I spoke out against that. That shouldn't cause too much controversy. The other thing I spoke about was atheism. And I want to make something clear. When I'm speaking against atheism, I am not attacking atheists. I've got some great, Liam Tuff's a good friend of mine. He's an atheist. Loads of other people I know and have known for years were atheists. In fact, my family, people in my family, very, very close members of my family were atheists many years ago. That's not the case anymore, but years ago that was the case. I'm not to say who they were, but that's just the reality of the situation. So I am not against atheists, but I am against atheism. And I must admit, I'm skeptical whether there are any true atheists exist. I always say jokingly when I'm talking to people, I don't believe in atheists. So when someone says an atheist, I say I don't believe in atheists. If they say they're an atheist, I don't believe that. Because I don't believe you can have enough knowledge to know for sure that there isn't a God. What you can have is enough doubt to say you don't think there is a God, but you can't say for sure. Unless you have all knowledge of everything that's ever happened in the universe, you can't say for sure that there's not God. There's not a God. And the reality is nobody has that knowledge except God. So the only person who could actually say there isn't a God is God himself, if that makes sense. So I don't believe that anyone can be fully committed to atheism. What you can have is an anger against God for various different reasons. You've had a bad life, you've had tragedy has struck your life, you've looked at the world, you've seen evil in the world, and you can't believe in a good God because of the evil in the world. All the usual arguments and excuses that atheists use. But they are not reasons to completely disbelieve in God. What they are is anger against God and shaking the fist against God and say, well, I don't believe you. And the Bible's very clear on this. And this is why I'm quite happy to speak on this. The Bible says very clearly, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. So it's the ultimate folly to look at this creation, look at that beautiful day that we had today, and just say, it just happened. And the more scientific discovery peers into the dim and distant past of this universe, they're saying very clearly, and this is top physicists, cosmologists, biologists, are saying, well, there appears to be design in pretty much everything. That's what people are saying. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to admit to that, but that seems to be the trajectory of things. And there's a lot of very good apologists. I'm not an apologist, but I've read what a lot of the apologists say. An apologist is someone who basically gives a reason for what we believe. So he'll look at the science, he'll look at various different things like the Big Bang and biology and all these sorts of things, to say, well, they actually point towards a creator instead of pointing away from a creator. But that's not what this video is about. This video is saying today was not me insulting atheists. What it was saying was atheism is a massive problem, because when you go down the road of atheism, you have no reason to behave in a moral way. Absolutely zero reason. If you're a full-on atheist, why would you be a moral character? There's no reason to do it. You could rob, steal, do whatever you wanted, because there's no accountability and there's no God to stand in front of on Judgment Day and answer for everything that you've done in your life. You're killing the conscience, because that little alarm bell in your innermost being that tells you when you're doing something wrong, well, that little alarm bell obviously doesn't ring if you don't believe that there's a God, but it does ring, because it rings in everyone's heart, whether you're a believer or a non-believer. And I want to ask the atheist where that comes from. Where does that sound of alarm, that guilt, that feeling of, oh my goodness, I've done something really wrong here? Because whether you're a believer or an unbeliever, all of us have that. And that's a very, very good indication that the Bible's true and that God's real. But from the point of view of if people got upset or insulted, that's not my intention. If you listen to what I said, I didn't attack atheists, I attacked atheism. In the same way I didn't attack Muslims, I attacked Islamism. And there's a big difference. So I'm not going to apologise for what I said, but I want to clarify what I said, because what I don't want is people jumping to the wrong conclusions And if you do, I can't do anything about that. But I hope that brings clarity. I hope people understand what I'm saying there. And obviously, I believe it's a massive, massive problem in our culture that people are turning away from God. And I think a lot of very deep thinking people like Jordan Peterson, Douglas Murray, Ayan Harsi Ali, a lot of very, very clever people who are far smarter than me are basically acknowledging this. Whether they become believers or not is a different story. And I would suggest if anyone wants to know more about these sort of subjects, go and read Dominion by Tom Holland. Tom Holland, as far as I know, still isn't a Christian, but he acknowledges that Christianity is what made our civilization. And Queen Victoria herself, when she was asked by an African prince what made the United Kingdom great, she took a King James version of the Bible in her hand, held it up in the air and said, "This is the book that made the United Kingdom great." And that's my position, that's my opinion. So I'm not insulting atheists. Please don't take it that way. I want every single person, every single Muslim, every single Hindu, every single Jew, every single atheist, agnostic, whatever, to come to Christ. Because I don't want to see any of my friends lost. And I don't want to see any of my friends living a life that is not as full as it could be if they did come to God. Hope that makes sense. Because again, I'm not apologizing for what I said, but what I'm saying to people that are atheists, I want you to come onto our team. It's as simple as that. Anyway, enough said. See you all soon.